Hello guys and welcome to my pre-patch rundown for the tanks in Shadowlands. My name is Squiggle. In this video I'm going to be talking about what I reckon are the best tanks right now, what's been seeing the most love out of all of the tanks, and most importantly, what I think might be the best tanks coming into the next expansion, Shadowlands. Now, even though Shadowlands has been delayed for a little spell, we can see that it has given us a really good opportunity to get into leveling some of the classes we've never been able to play. I'm going to start off this video by saying that the new leveling system is fantastic. I've had a blast and I've literally got every single character to max level at this point. Even characters that I don't know if I'm going to play in the future. I've just been having so much fun playing with friends and leveling with them and really trying out the new class changes. And honestly, there are some really promising things across the board. In this video, I'm going to give a very brief rundown of what to expect from these tanks, how they're looking compared to how they've been in BFA, and of course, what I would recommend you guys play if you haven't played them before. So without further ado, here is my guide and I hope you guys enjoy. So to start off with, at our number 6 spot, we have the Warrior. Now of course, the Warrior, it's been a complete beast in Mythic Plus for as long as we can remember. Near the end of Season 1, where the Prot Warrior got slight buffs and good quality of life changes, we've seen this just be a complete brick in keys and even be very good in some sort of raid encounters such as Jaina and other very high physical damage bosses which require blocks. However, coming into Shadowlands, it looks like Blizzard have been trying to move a lot of the strength out of the Prot Warrior in Mythic Plus. However, they haven't given it enough to compensate, which is going to make it a very strong and reliable raid tank. For this reason, I'm going to say that it is strictly just getting nerfed in both of these scenarios. So much to the point that if you didn't really get into the Warrior in BFA, I recommend that you do not pick it up for Shadowlands or for this pre-patch in turn. After this, we are going to put the Druid in our number 5 spot. Now even though it has got some slight changes here and there, got a few new abilities, I don't think that it is enough at this point to give it a really good spot in the pre-patch or in Shadowlands. Sure, there have been some people who have been playing it from the very get-go, but overall I do not think it has the tools required to make it a very strong tank. And on top of that, a lot of people find the playstyle rather boring. For the class to be extremely viable again, it would need to have the sort of tools that it had early on in Legion. Of course, we have to remember that the Guardian Druid was extremely strong for the majority of Legion, and we need to take these rankings with a large grain of salt. They're trying to keep Druid in a very balanced place because people were simply bringing 2 Guardian Druids, having 2 Stampeding Roars, and it was honestly just way too broken. So if it gets some slight buffs and it'll be in a good spot for M+, I'll be pretty happy, but I don't want to see the meta of tanking just being bringing the 2 exact same classes over and over again. It gets pretty mundane. Next up, at number 4, we have the Death Knight. Now the Death Knight has received a couple of nice quality of life changes. I really do like what they've done with the talents on the Blood DK. However, the main thing is that this class is still very reactive compared to being proactive. It makes people pretty much shit their pants whenever they see the DK go down to 20%, but that's what the class is at this point. Of course, the Death Knight has been a complete nightmare for Blizzard to balance for the longest time. They've needed to make sure that the class is not unkillable, feels kind of mortal. Of course, just like the Druid, the DK is something that is really hard to balance. It's the kind of class where if you give it too much rope, it's just going to need absolutely no healing at all. But in its current state, it feels a little bit like a wet noodle, and the healer and the tank are pretty much going to be praying for their life whenever they're playing this class. Overall though, I think it is getting some nice things coming into Shadowlands, such as some of the Covenant abilities, so it would be something to pick up, especially if you're looking at doing some grips in raid or you're looking at doing some low level Mythic Plus tanking. Next up, in our number 3 spot, we're going to have the Demon Hunter. Now Vengeance Demon Hunter, honestly, it's feeling amazing right now. They've shifted around a lot of the stuff, and in my opinion, the Demon Hunter had some massive problems pretty much ever since it was released. Its main cooldown was way too long, its defensive capabilities were not all that good, And yeah, it was really spiky, and you pretty much couldn't do anything even if you knew that damage was coming in. However, what we have coming into this patch is we have Fell Devastation, and we have a talent which is going to allow us to turn into Metamorphosis whenever we use our Fell Devastation. This is going to be a really good spell, both for dungeon tanking and for raid tanking, as it gives the Demon Hunter another way to do massive damage and to increase its survivability. So overall, this class is feeling really fun, and I'm hopeful to seeing it be one of the best tanks coming into the Shadowlands. At number 2, and my personal favorite, it is the Prot Paladin. Now, the Prot Paladin, for the longest time, it is known to have really good utility. For example, many top tier guilds ended up putting in a singular Prot Paladin in order to nullify some of the effects of fights such as Zul and Jaina. Now, of course, the underlying issue that came with the Prot Paladin for the last couple of years is that you could not keep your SOTR on 100% uptime. However, 100% SOTR uptime is now achievable in the Shadowlands pre-patch, and it should still be able to keep 100% uptime on SOTR in Shadowlands, even though we're losing quite a little bit of haste. On top of this, the Protection Paladin is also gaining Word of Glory, which also becomes free to cast after you've used 5 SOTR stacks. So this basically allows the Prot Pally to be very self-sustainable, and if they're not taking too much damage, they can also use their Word of Glories on their raid members. Now, honestly, I'm a really huge fan of this kind of playstyle. I think the Paladin fits really well into this niche of being a really good off tank and Mythic Plus off healer. I think if they can hone in on this decision, then the Prot Pally will be insanely fun to play and really strong simultaneously. Now, one final note about the Protection Paladin, it does insane damage right now. There is a build that you can go, it's kind of cheesy, it's a triple Light's Decree build which is meant to be for Retribution Paladin. However, it is doing insane damage for both the Prot Pally and the Holy Pally because of the introduction of the Holy Power system. So, if you want to have a little bit of fun, blast through some dungeons, make sure to pick up these traits and have a blast while you can. Now lastly, when you thought that the monk could not be any more broken, the Shadowlands pre-patch came in. Now, what can we say about the monk that has just been the king pretty much for as long as we can remember? The monk has been insanely strong ever since Nighthold, so probably a little bit longer than 3 years. And they've just received some changes which are pretty much going to end up in being buffs. Now, even though they may not be as unkillable coming into raid environments, they are going to be extremely strong in Mythic Plus. They are going to receive the Celestial Brute ability, which is basically going to mimic the Guard ability that they used to have back in the day. I think it was Warlords of Draenor at the end of that it got removed. However, this pretty much gives the monk a little bit more self-sustainability. The monk, historically, for the last 4 years, has required a lot of healing, which makes it really good in a raid environment because, you know, you have 4 healers, you have a Pally beacon on it. However, in Mythic Plus, it's pretty much reliant on a Druid keeping 4 to 5 hots on it simultaneously. So with this change, the Brewmaster Monk is going to be a lot more solid in dungeons, and you're going to find yourself a lot more self-sustainable, and your input to playing the class is going to matter a little bit more than your healer this time. Now after this, we are going to see that it is also getting Touch of Death. Now every single monk spec is getting Touch of Death, and it's basically just going to one-shot something when it gets to a certain HP threshold. Now, when I was leveling, some of the things would get to about 70% HP and I'd just be able to nuke them. Now, when it comes to high scaling content such as High M Plus and Raid, this may not be as crazy, but to put it in perspective, if you've got a mob that really needs to die and your monk is doing more damage than anyone in your raid and he's a tank to kill it, then that's extremely strong in both progression rating and high M+. So overall, this class is going to be insane. It's really fun to play. You feel like you have a lot more interaction in the spec now, and overall, I give it the #1 spot on this list. Now that just about wraps up my guide for the tanks in the Shadowlands pre-patch. So remember guys, the delay of the expansion isn't all doom and gloom. You guys have time to get up these classes, have a little bit of fun, play these tanks in some dungeons, and honestly just have a blast. If you guys like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more content, make sure that you subscribe. After the Shadowlands release, I'm planning on making a lot of guides, so stay tuned for that, and you guys can check out my old guides if you want to see what this channel is all about. And of course, most importantly, make sure to leave a comment if you guys have some feedback or some questions. I love hearing from you guys, and I love bettering this channel, so make sure to let me know what's up. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.